Hello guys, this is Siri from Siri Tutor Blogs. Um, so today we are going to look into the rest of the Spring MVC application development. Uh, in the last session we have seen web installer coding and the config coding. Today we are going to do this home controller. Um, so this the previous sessions covered web config, web initializer, and pom.xml. Uh, let's dive into the rest of the code. Um, so the main purpose of the home controller is to handle the root URL. It redirects to the registration form. For that, we have to include at the rate controller annotation. So the main URL is for get, and which gets the home page. Register. So for this method to be called, we have to add annotation get mapping and the root URL is slash. Okay. Um, Now we are going to code for user controller. So the main intent of the user controller is it handles user registration request. So whenever we hit on HTTP localhost 8080 slash user slash register, it comes to this page and it will demonstrates at the rate controller, which marks this as a Spring MVC controller, and at the rate request mapping, it is a base URL mapping for this controller, and at the rate mapping or at the rate post mapping, it's a HTTP method specific mappings, and at the rate model attributes that binds the form data to the model object, and also at the rate valid that triggers the bean validation, and binding result holds the validation errors, and model passes the data to the view, and redirect attributes, it's a flash attributes for the redirect and to sustain the component. So let's controller to mark this as a Spring MVC container @request mapping is for base URL mapping for this controller @get mapping or @post mapping is for HTTP method specific mapping. @model attribute is for binds form data to model object, and valid triggers bean validation and binding result holds validation errors. Model passes data to view and redirect attributes flash attributes for redirect. So let's add @controller to mark this class as a Spring MVC container. Let's add request mapping and let's add the base URL here. /user is the base URL. So whenever you say HTTP colon localhost 8080, we have to put this base URL as /user, and after that you can concat the rest of the URLs for different form request. Um, so this this controller will be reached whenever the user hits any request from the browser. Now, initially it shows a registration form through get/user/register. So let's write the registration form method here. Public string show registration form. It will take a model it gets user/ register showing registration form. So after it shows the registration form, we have to set the model attribute. So model dot add attribute. We are going to add attributes. Now the user does not exist, so that's why it is giving us an error. Uh, yeah, I think we have declared an empty class, so yeah, I think so. It is cannot be resolved. Um, I think later on when we implement this class completely, the error is gonna go off. So for now, that's fine. Let's continue. So when we do this, a model add an attribute, we are saying simply saying add an empty user object to the model. The controller added empty user object to the model, and returning the view, returning to the view, the view name is user form.jsp, right? So user form. Okay, and we are returning the excuse me, user form. For all this to happen, we have to include an annotation called get mapping. And what is the after registered? Okay. Mm, it should be attribute, not attributes. Why is this not working properly? It should be dot add attribute. Yeah, it's not attributes. Okay. Uh, then then we are going to do a post mapping. This get mapping is we are going to see this method call happening when we hit the um, first time browser, when we hit user slash register. This is where it calls this method. Now after filling out all the form and clicking on the register button, for that we have to come up with another method which is called process the registration. What this method does it is process the registration form. User enters all the data in the form, and when it clicks on the registration, it is the new entry in the database. So it is the new post. So for that, it will call post method. Post. And in this method, we are going to use at the rate post mapping for HTTP post request annotation. Um, and then at the rate valid triggers, we are going to validate each and every field, which means if the user should be greater than 8 characters but less than 20, um, such kind of validations we are going to check. And then we are going to add model attribute at the rate model attributes to bind the form data to the user, and binding result, whatever the validation, after the validation, the result of the validation, which is called binding result, must come right after the validation parameter. And validation error handling, and redirect after successful post. What are we going to do if all the validation is successful? Where are we going to redirect this page to? So redirect after successful post, which is called PRG pattern. Okay, let's string process registration. In this process registration, we have to pass some parameters. The first parameter we are going to pass is valid, and also the model attribute user, and binding result, and model and redirect attributes. Okay, so these are the parameters it's going to take. um, let's print a little display to the end user, like it is from controller, and what it is doing is it is making a post user register for processing the registration. Okay, now so when the user enters all the data, we are going to process the registration, and it's going to received user data, right? If binding result dot has errors, if it is having any errors, then we are not going to proceed. So it's we have to tell them that there is an error, validation failed, validation failed. And what is the error? Binding result dot get error count. Okay, so it will tell these many errors, and then binding result dot get all errors for each error dot get default message, and it should end with a semicolon here. So here we'll just display message saying that controller returning to form with errors. Okay, and we have to return this user form dot .jsp. Okay, we have to return the user form dot .jsp, and if this condition is all completely satisfied, if it doesn't go into this condition, then it means the user validation is passed. Validation passed. Okay, and after the validation passes, registration user, registration user, we are going to just print user dot get user. We did not let's write down the user class here before creating anything else. Let's fill out this user class first. So the user model with bean validation. So here we are going to use different annotations for the user. Let's generate some constructors. Let's generate some getters and setters, default constructors as well. I think for getters and setters we have to come up with the variables first. Private string username, private string email password private integer age private string phone number. Okay, so we will make sure that we have to make sure the user is not leaving this field empty, and if he leaves it, we are going to send out a message, send out an alert message saying that username is required. Okay, I think here we are not supposed to put any inverted commas. Okay, in the same way, the username size we are going to include the size minimum is 3 and max can be 20, and if it is less or greater, we are going to alert the user that username must be 3 to 20 characters long. Okay, let's do the same thing for the rest of the things. Let's add not null for everything. Okay, so let's change this to email is required, password is required, age is required, and phone number is required. Okay, same way we'll add at the rate email for the email field in Spring Java. In Java Spring, we have special annotation for email, and we can email, it will just say at the rate. Without at the rate, it will not recognize it as a valid email. So we'll just say if it is not that, it doesn't provide a valid thing, we are going to send out a message saying that it's not, please provide a valid address. Same way, first password we can add again we can add the size for password. Maybe the size should be, minimum size is 8 or 6, does not matter. Password must be password must be 6 characters, must be at least 6 characters. Okay, and let's do for age. For age we are going to add at the rate min, which will say minimum age is, the value for the minimum age is 18, and the message is You must be at least 18 years old. And maximum age is value is 120. Message, please enter a valid age. For phone, at the rate pattern, so we are going to include the regex pattern here. Expression equals to um, where is the ten digits? Okay, now let's add constructor, default constructor here. Why did it add only one? It should add all the, maybe it's not saved. Let's add one more time. Select all. Something is not right here. I think we have to select like this. Select none. Oh, we have. Okay, and then let's add getters and setters. Getters. And let's add setter. Okay. And let's add overridden method for toString. Okay, so that is pretty much it that we have finished. Now let's go back to our user controller here, and let's finish the rest of the method here. So get username. So validation passed, validation passed for registration of the user, and registration the user saved successfully. Okay, now the user is saved successfully in the model. um, because once we see the output from the user, as this particular user has been saved, user saved successfully. Okay, now we are going to add the flash attribute. So this will save the um, user user across different pages. So the flash attributes is for redirecting and survives the redirect. Now let's do a redirect attributes dot add flash attribute, and what it does is success message welcome, and we'll just say user dot get username, registration successful, and we are going to add dot add flash attribute user. Hmm, what is the problem here? It's double quote. We don't need these many brackets. Okay, we have added user also to this flash attribute, and in controller, which is redirecting to success page, and we are going to return redirect user slash success. Okay, for this method to get picked up by the controller, we have to add this annotation post mapping, and we have to give slash register. Okay, then the next one is, after it clicks on the registration button, we have to take them to the success page. For that, we have to come up with another method which is called um, show success page, and we have to include the annotation get mapping, and it should be mapped with slash success. Okay. From the controller, what is the message we want to display is get user slash success. It is showing the success page. Okay. Model contains flash attributes from the redirect. So whatever the model attributes we are setting during the registration form, those same attributes will, those same user we are going to see getting displayed on the success page. Controller model contains flash attributes from redirect. Okay, and returning view success. So okay, okay. So when I say success, it will call the success.jsp here. Okay. The next one is we are going to see how many users do we have. We can return a dummy template user after the success. If you want to see API endpoint to get the users as JSON, um, like you can set a path variable, extra variable for the URL path, and you can add a response body which returns the data directly, uh, not it's not a view name, but it just displays the data directly, where we can just hard code the user from here itself, and as a restful endpoint. So for that we can create another method, public user get user by username. Okay, so for this one we have to add at the rate get mapping value equals to API slash username. So whenever we give in the curly brackets, we have to, which means after we enter the URL, we have to supply the username in the URL in order for this method to be called. Okay, and then produce equals to Oh, I should end here. Produces. What is going to produce? It's going to produce an application slash JSON format. Uh, produces mm, application slash JSON. Um, let's provide the another annotation response body. Okay. Something is not right. It is. Did we add a dot? It should be a comma, right? Yeah. Yes. So now in this thing, we are going to add at the rate path variable username and string username. Get user slash API. So we are going to create a dummy hard-coded user here, and we'll just use that. Username plus we are going to add @example.com, and for the password we are going to give few stars, and for the age it is 25, and for the phone number it is this thing. Okay, we are just hard coding the user and we are just displaying it. So from the controller, returning user as JSON, this user, whatever the user we have set it up, the same user we are displaying here, and we are returning the user. Return user. Okay, and let's create one more for search, which will handle the request parameter using search question mark with the name. So for that one, it has to enter get mapping annotation dot search get mapping annotation slash search. and the same thing we have to enter the request body, response body, sorry, response body, and then let's write the method call, method implementation, search users. Let's add the same parameters here also, request parameter, um, name we are going to enter in the URL, request parameter, I think should be like this, name, and then required field is true. Without entering the name we cannot fetch the data from the search. Okay, and then we need string name, request param name equals to minimum age, false, and default value equals to 0, int min age. Okay, and so here the request parameter minimum age required is false, which means we don't have to enter anything. Even if we don't enter anything, it is not it will just default to 0, so which is min age. Okay, so get user slash search request is name, which is it is telling that you have to enter a name, and then it could be any name, it does not need to be just one name. Okay, the name which we have set it up in the user model, and manage return searching for users with name containing name. Actually, this is in a hard coded thing, so it doesn't do anything. And age should be greater than and equals to minimum age. Okay, that is pretty much it about uh, how we are going to define the user controller. We have already defined the user here, and the last class we have to define is logging interceptor. So the main purpose of the logging interceptor is it intercepts all the HTTP request. It so it demonstrates three method calls here. First is pre-handle. So any request that comes from the user via browser, the before controller method will be called, which is pre-handle, and post handler is called after the controller before viewing before view is rendering, and after completion is done after the view renders the page completely. So we are going to implement those these three methods. In pre-handler, we are going to execute before the controller method calls. Okay, user the main use cases for this is this pre-handles can be called during the authentication and authorization check and logging request details or request validation, and it can be even called before returning true to continue or false to stop the request. Okay, let's code this. Let's override this method call pre-handle public boolean. This is going to return true or false. Pre-handle, and what it is going to take as a parameters are http servlet request and http servlet response. Object handler interceptor pre handle handler. Okay, interceptor request URI is request dot get request URI. Let's print we can print what is the HTTP method. Call it is HTTP method remote address dot get remote address, and also we can print content type. Content type. Content type and a handler. Get class dot get simple name. Okay, and here we are going to add we are going to track what is the start time. So system dot current milliseconds, we are going to save it in a variable long start time equals to request dot set attribute of start time start time. We are going to display it here, and then proceeding to the controller, we'll just display okay, and we are going to return true. Okay, the next thing is the post handler. So the post handler, it executes after the controller and before, after the controller executes and before the view is rendered. So um, so whenever we are modifying the model and view, and whenever we add a common model attributes, the logging response data, or um, this will not be called when the controller throws an exception, but okay, all right then. Let's override the post handler now. Post handle. Okay, pre-handle, post handle. Now the parameters are same for them also. Okay. Here, uh, controller completed successfully. Okay, and here if request response and object handler, we have to add one more parameter which is called as model and view. Okay, if model view, if it is not equal to null, then it comes inside this, and then it will have get view name interceptor. Okay, we are going to display the view name is dot get view name same way model data is get model. Now we are going to add common attributes to all the views. new dot add object is app name Spring MVC demo version 1.0 version 1.0. Then it's going to we're going to say proceeding to view rendering page. Okay. um, that is pretty much it about the post handle. Now let's code after complete. So this after complete executes after the view is rendered, rendering is complete. So the main use cases for this method call is resource cleaning, for the resource cleaning, for performance logging, and error logging if there is any exceptions. So always called even if the exception occurred, but post handle does not call after the if there is any exception occurs. Okay. All right. We are going to copy the same parameters except this we are going to say exception. Exception. Okay. So here calculating the request process time here again. So we have added to the request the start time, the same start time, that same time we are getting it here, and we are printing it. Okay. And then if time is not equal to null, then long end time equals to so request completed in duration, the same duration in milliseconds. Let's put a space here. Okay. Mm, and we are going to print the response status, interceptor response status, response dot get response, get status. Okay. And if there is any exception like ex not equal to null, which means if there is an exception, we are going to exception occurred, ex dot get message, else no exceptions, request successful, is successful. um, we'll stop the session here, um, and we will see in the next session. Let's finish this. After finishing this, we'll just stop it. Interceptor request and response cycle complete. Okay. Okay. Oh, looks like there is some error here. We need to get rid of this one. Errors are all gone. We'll stop the session here and the execution will continue in the next session. Thank you guys. Please share, subscribe, and comment. Thank you and have a nice day. Bye.